Beneath the crystalline waters of the Bahamas lies a riddle made of stone. A half-mile stretch of massive rectangular blocks that shouldn't exist. Is it a natural geologic quirk or the paved remains of a lost prehistoric civilization? In 1968, divers discovered what looked like a deliberate paved highway. The blocks are perfectly aligned, some weighing over 5 tons. They sit in just 20 feet of water, mocking our modern understanding of the ancient Atlantic world. This wasn't just a random find. Decades earlier, a famed psychic predicted that a temple would be risen near Bimini. When these stones appeared, the world stopped. Was this the rising of Atlantis that Edgar Cayce had foretold? For over 50 years, geologists and archaeologists have been at war. One side claims it's beachrock that fractured naturally. The other points to the precision, the corners, and the layers of leveling stones beneath the primary road surface. Today, we strip away the myths and the skepticism. We are diving deep into the forensic evidence of the Bimini Road. We will examine the high-precision engineering and the haunting possibility that a forgotten empire once walked these stones. In 1940, Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, made a startling claim. He predicted that Poseidia, a portion of Atlantis, would be discovered near Bimini in 1968 or 1969. To his followers, the 1968 discovery was a miracle. Cayce described a sunken temple, a hall of records, and a civilization that harnessed energy through giant crystals. When Dr. Manson Valentine looked down into the water 30 years later, he saw exactly what Cayce had seen in his visions. Valentine wasn't looking for a road, but he found a megalithic structure stretching 1,600 feet. The stones were laid out in a distinct J shape, with some blocks featuring rounded edges that suggested deliberate, artistic, or functional masonry. Skeptics quickly moved in, calling it beachrock. They argued that natural erosion creates rectangular fractures in limestone. But beachrock doesn't usually form two distinct parallel tracks with smaller stones tucked underneath for support. Nature rarely builds with such intent. If this is nature's work, she is a master of mimicry. But if it is man-made, we are looking at a history that has been erased by the rising tides of the last great ice age. Let's look closer. In the 1970s, core samples were taken to end the debate. Geologists claimed the internal structure of the rocks matched the surrounding seafloor. To them, the case was closed. The Bimini Road was a natural formation of fractured limestone. They argued that as the shoreline receded, the limestone dried and cracked into blocks. Over thousands of years, the tide rounded the edges. It's a common phenomenon known as tessellated pavement. But the Bimini blocks are uniquely thick and massive. Look at the comparison. Natural tessellated pavement is usually thin and flat. The Bimini blocks are thick, pillow-shaped, and multi-layered. They resemble the megalithic walls found in Peru or Egypt more than they resemble a natural Florida beach. Proponents of the man-made theory point to the leveling stones. In several areas, the large blocks sit on smaller fist-sized stones. This is a common engineering technique used to stabilize structures on soft sand. Nature does not level its rock. Even more baffling are the reports of tool marks. Some divers claim to have seen straight lines and notches that could only be made by a wedge or a chisel. These markings are often dismissed as scratches from anchors, but they persist. 12,000 years ago, the world was a different place. The sea levels were 300 feet lower. Bimini wasn't a series of islands. It was a high ridge on a massive landmass that stretched toward the Caribbean and Florida. If a civilization existed during the Younger Dryas period, they would have built their cities on the coast. When the ice caps melted, the ocean rose with terrifying speed, swallowing their world in a matter of generations. Bimini is the remnants. The road is just the tip of the iceberg. Sonar scans of the surrounding area show hundreds of other anomalies. Rectangles, circles, and even pyramids buried under feet of sand and silt. We are looking at a drowned landscape of ruins. We are uncovering the secrets that the mainstream avoids. If you believe there is more to our history than we are being told, hit that subscribe button. Join us as we piece together the fragments of the lost world. Throughout the Atlantic, There are echoes of this ancient future engineering. From the submerged ruins of Yonaguni in Japan to the structures off the coast of Cuba, a pattern is emerging. A global seafaring culture that thrived before the flood. In 2001, a team of researchers found something even more shocking than Bimini. At a depth of over 2,000 feet, they discovered a massive complex of urban ruins off the coast of Cuba, geometric structures that span several square miles. Unlike Bimini, these structures are far too deep to have been above water in the last 50,000 years, according to traditional geology. This discovery challenges everything. It suggests an advanced civilization that was lost even earlier than the last ice age. The stones at Bimini and the stones off of Cuba share a haunting similarity in their scale and geometry. They are built to last forever. They are silent sentinels of a history that has been systematically ignored by the academic establishment for decades. Why the resistance? To admit the Bimini Road is man-made is to admit that our timeline of human civilization is fundamentally wrong. It means someone was building megalithic highways while we were supposed to be primitive hunter-gatherers. The data doesn't lie, but it can be hidden. Let's look at the heart of the road, the section where the stones are most coherent. Here, the stones are over 10 feet long and 5 feet wide. They are fitted together with a precision that defies natural wave action. Some researchers believe these stones weren't just a road. They believe they were part of a massive breakwater or a pier for a harbor that served a global maritime empire, a hub of trade in the ancient Atlantic. If this was a port, it would have been one of the most important locations in the prehistoric world. It sits at the crossroads of the Americas and the Atlantic. It would have been the gateway to the island of Atlas. Nature always tries to reclaim what man has built. Over 10,000 years of coral growth and sand movement have obscured the truth, but even the thickest layer of silt cannot hide the deliberate, right-angle intent of these stones. Imagine walking this road when it was dry land. To your left, a thriving city of stone and wood. To your right, the vast blue Atlantic. This was the pinnacle of a lost era, an era we are only now rediscovering. Plato's account of Atlantis is often dismissed as a fable. He described an empire that existed 9,000 years before his time, placing it exactly at the end of the last ice age. The timeline matches the Bimini Road perfectly. Plato described a city of concentric circles and massive stone walls. While the Bimini Road is linear, it represents the kind of large-scale maritime engineering Plato spoke of. It is a piece of the puzzle that refuses to fit the natural narrative. Cayce's fire crystals and Plato's orichalcum suggest a civilization with a deep understanding of energy. Some fringe researchers believe the Bimini Road was actually part of a massive acoustic or electromagnetic array, a highway of energy, not just stone. Is it possible we are looking at technology we don't yet understand? We call it a road because that's what it looks like to us, but to them, it might have been something entirely different, a conductor, a foundation. Artifacts have been reported. Strange marble cylinders, carved stones, and metallic shards have been pulled from the waters around Bimini. Most are lost or hidden in private collections, far from the prying eyes of independent researchers. Near the road, divers have discovered what appeared to be marble columns. Some are perfectly cylindrical, others are fluted. Geologists claim they are ballast from colonial ships, but the sheer volume and weight suggest something much more ancient. Why would a colonial ship dump hundreds of tons of perfectly carved marble in the exact same spot as a prehistoric stone road? The ballast theory is a convenient way to explain away architectural evidence that shouldn't be there. Then there is the J shape. The road ends in a perfectly executed curve. Natural geological fractures follow straight lines or chaotic patterns. They do not follow the purposeful sweeping arc of a grand entrance or a defensive wall. This curve suggests intent. It suggests a plan. Someone stood here and designed this structure to withstand the power of the Atlantic, and for thousands of years, even submerged, it has held its ground against the currents. We are looking at a forensic crime scene where the victim is history itself. The evidence has been washed by the tides, buried by the sand, and dismissed by the experts. But the stones remain. They are persistent. If we look globally, Bimini is no longer an outlier. In Egypt, we see 100-ton blocks moved with impossible precision. In Peru, the walls of Sacsayhuaman feature interlocking stones that even a razor blade cannot fit between. The Bimini style of masonry is found across the ancient world. It is the signature of a megalithic culture that prioritized longevity and earthquake resistance. Why do we assume the Atlantic was the only place they didn't build? There are those who suggest a world grid, a network of sacred sites placed with mathematical precision. Bimini sits on a major node of this grid. If this road was part of that network, its purpose was far from mundane.
Was this a place of ritual? A place where the sky met the sea? The ancient inhabitants of this land were not just surviving, they were thriving in a world that was technologically and spiritually sophisticated beyond our current understanding. The heart of the mystery is why we are so afraid of it. Why is the possibility of an advanced ancient past treated like a threat? Perhaps because it means we aren't the first, and we won't be the last. Modern technology is finally catching up to the mystery. High-resolution sonar, ground-penetrating radar, and 3D photogrammetry are allowing us to see through the sand and the skepticism. What we are finding is a city, not a road. Just miles from the road, massive structures have been identified buried under the sediment. These mounds have the distinct geometric footprint of pyramids and temples. We are looking at an entire civilization that has been preserved in a watery tomb. The data suggests that the Bimini Road was a quay, a massive stone dock for a harbor that was once bustling with ships. The ships were not made of wood and rope, but of materials that have long since decayed. If this was a port for a global empire, it would explain why we find similar structures on opposite sides of the Atlantic. It was a world connected by the sea long before the first modern map was ever drawn. The tragedy of Bimini is the tragedy of humanity's short memory. We forget the giants on whose shoulders we stand. We look at a highway and see natural rock because we cannot imagine a world more advanced than our own. Is the Bimini Road a natural formation? Science says it's possible. Is it a man-made road? The evidence says it's likely. But the truth doesn't care about our labels. The truth simply is. The stones are there. Every year, the Atlantic tides shift the sand, revealing more of the road and then hiding it again. It is a slow, rhythmic unveiling of a secret that the ocean has guarded for 12,000 years. The mystery is breathing. We are living in an age of rediscovery. The Bimini Road is just one chapter in a much longer, much older story. A story of a high-precision civilization that mastered the stone and the sea before the world went dark. What will it take to finally accept the truth? Perhaps a single artifact, perhaps a more detailed scan, or perhaps just the courage to look at these stones and see the work of a master, not an accident. The Bimini Road remains, a highway to nowhere or a highway to our forgotten past. The Atlantic still holds its breath, waiting for us to remember what was lost beneath the waves. The evidence is beneath our feet.